She's still there. You might live on the other side of the world from your mother. She might have passed away years ago. You might have cut all contact. But here's what Jung understood, and what will change everything for you. The mother who controls your life isn't the one in the outside world. It's the one living inside your mind. And until you face her, you will never be free. She doesn't always speak in words. Sometimes she appears as hesitation, guilt, or that uneasy feeling in your chest when you try to choose yourself. Her influence lives in your emotional reflexes, in the way you shrink, in the way you strive, in the way you search for love that feels just out of reach. Carl Jung called it one of the most powerful psychological forces in existence, the mother complex. It isn't just about the woman who raised you, it's about the psychic echo she left behind, an imprint so deep it became a part of your identity before you even knew you had one. Jung discovered something terrifying about the human psyche. We think we're living our own lives, making our own choices, following our own dreams, but the truth is far more disturbing. Most adults are still psychological prisoners, trapped in invisible chains forged in childhood by the very person who was meant to set them free. And the hardest part, most people don't even realize it. They just feel stuck, anxious, unfulfilled, like something essential is always just beyond their grasp, without knowing why. This isn't about blame, this isn't about hatred, this is about liberation, because Jung revealed that the most dangerous prison is the one you don't even know you're in. And today, I'm going to show you the key. Let's begin. Jung spent decades studying the human unconscious, and what he found shook him to his core. Every person carries within them what he called the mother complex, an invisible psychological structure that operates like a hidden operating system, running programs you never consciously installed. Think about it. Right now, as an adult, how do you react when someone criticizes you? Do you shrink back, just like you did when your mother raised her voice? When you achieve something beautiful, do you feel guilty, as if success somehow betrays her struggles? When you try to speak your truth, does a familiar voice whisper, "Don't be selfish," or "What will people think?" That voice isn't yours. It's hers. And Jung discovered that this internal mother doesn't age, doesn't evolve, doesn't learn. She remains frozen in time, wielding the same power over your adult self that she held over you as a child. Here's the paradox that tormented Jung's patients, and maybe torments you too. You can love your mother deeply while simultaneously being psychologically trapped by her. You can honor her sacrifices while recognizing that her unhealed wounds became your invisible chains. Love and liberation aren't opposites. In fact, true love sometimes demands the courage to break free. Jung wrote, "The greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of the parents. Your mother's dreams she never pursued, her voice she never used, her boundaries she never set. All of this didn't disappear when you grew up. It lives inside you, creating a prison of inherited limitation. But here's what's even more insidious. This prison doesn't announce itself. It masquerades as love, as loyalty, as being a good person. You stay small and call it humility. You silence your needs and call it selflessness. You abandon your dreams and call it responsibility." Jung understood that until we make this invisible force conscious, we remain children wearing adult masks, forever seeking permission to exist fully, forever waiting for someone else to validate our worth. Through years of deep psychological work, Jung identified 3 distinct faces of the mother complex, 3 different ways the internal mother can hold you captive. Understanding which one lives in your psyche is the first step toward freedom. The devouring mother appears in your unconscious as love that consumes rather than nurtures. This is the mother who loved you so much she couldn't let you go. Her protection became suffocation. Her care became control. If this is your pattern, you likely struggle with independence. Decision-making feels dangerous. Success feels like abandonment. You find yourself in relationships where people need to save you or where your growth threatens those closest to you. The devouring mother whispers, "The world is dangerous. Stay close, stay safe, stay small." And you obey even as your soul screams for expansion. The absent mother lives in your psyche as a wound of never being enough. This mother was physically present, but emotionally unavailable, depressed, overwhelmed, or simply incapable of seeing you clearly. If this is your inheritance, you likely chase achievement, approval, and affection, trying to fill a hole that can never be satisfied from the outside. You excel at reading other people's needs while remaining blind to your own. The absent mother whispers, "Try harder. Be better. Maybe then you'll be worthy of love." And you exhaust yourself trying to earn what should have been freely given. The perfect mother is perhaps the most insidious because she's wrapped in gold. This is the mother you've idealized, the one who sacrificed everything for you. Jung warned that idealization is just as imprisoning as demonization. When you can't see your mother's flaws, you can't see your own worth. You become trapped in eternal gratitude, forever the debtor in a relationship that should have been based on unconditional love. The perfect mother whispers, "After everything I've done for you, how could you disappoint me?" And you sacrifice your authentic self on the altar of her image. Yet here's what Jung discovered, and what will set you free. These aren't really about your actual mother. They're archetypal patterns, ancient psychological forces that every human must face. Your mother was simply the vessel through which these universal energies reached you. Understanding this transforms everything from personal tragedy into sacred initiation. Jung didn't use gentle language when describing the cost of an unhealed mother complex. He called it psychological imprisonment, a form of soul murder that happens not through malice but through unconscious inheritance of pain. The symptoms are everywhere, hiding in plain sight. Chronic guilt that arises whenever you put yourself first, a paralyzing fear of disappointing others, the inability to feel joy without apologizing for it afterward. Relationships that recreate the exact dynamics you swore you'd never repeat. But Jung went deeper. He discovered that when you carry your mother's unlived life, you become an echo rather than an original. Her suppressed anger becomes your depression. Her unfulfilled dreams become your creative blocks. Her fear of abandonment becomes your terror of intimacy. This isn't metaphorical. Jung observed that complexes operate like autonomous personalities within the psyche. The mother complex has its own voice, its own agenda, its own will. It speaks through your inner critic. It chooses your partners. It sabotages your success. It convinces you that self-care is selfishness and that boundaries are betrayal. Look at your life right now. Where do you shrink when you should expand? Where do you people-please when you should protect your energy? Where do you apologize for existing instead of celebrating your presence? These aren't personality flaws. They're the footprints of the mother complex, the evidence of a wound so deep you've organized your entire life around avoiding it. Jung wrote, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. But what irritates us most about our mothers often reflects the parts of ourselves we've disowned. The mother who was too emotional taught you to suppress your feelings. The mother who was too weak taught you to reject your own softness. The mother who was too much taught you to make yourself small. The sacred wound isn't just personal trauma, it's generational inheritance." Jung understood that unconscious patterns pass through family lines like emotional DNA. Your mother's mother wounded her. Her mother's mother wounded her mother. The chain stretches back through generations of women who were taught to sacrifice themselves and call it love. And here's the profound truth Jung revealed. This chain can end with you, but only if you have the courage to face what you've been avoiding, only if you're willing to feel what you've been numbing, only if you stop protecting the very person whose protection is keeping you from becoming who you were meant to be. Now, we reach the threshold where most people turn back. Because knowing about the mother complex is one thing. Facing it directly is entirely another. Jung understood that intellectual insight without emotional confrontation changes nothing. The mother complex doesn't live in your mind. It lives in your body, your dreams, your unconscious reactions. Jung developed a method he called active imagination, a conscious dialogue with the figures living in your unconscious. This isn't visualization or fantasy. It's a direct encounter with the archetypal forces that have been shaping your life from the shadows. Here's how you begin. Find a quiet space where you won't be interrupted. Close your eyes and invite the internal mother to appear. Don't control the image. Let her emerge as she is. Angry, sad, disappointed, controlling, absent. This isn't the mother from your memories. This is the mother complex, the psychic force that has been governing your choices. Now speak to her. Tell her how her voice has limited you. Express the anger you were never allowed to feel. Share the grief of the childhood you never had. Let the forbidden emotions rise. Jung insisted that healing begins when we stop protecting the very forces that have been destroying us. But here's what's crucial. This isn't about attacking or blaming. It's about separating. It's about saying, I honor what you've given me, but I no longer belong to you. I belong to myself. You might feel guilty during this process. The mother complex will fight for its survival. It will whisper that you're being ungrateful, selfish, cruel. These voices are not the truth. They are the death rattles of a system that has kept you small. Jung taught that we must also dialogue with the inner child, the part of you that internalized these patterns. Ask this child what they needed and never received. Ask them what dreams they abandoned to keep peace in the family. Ask them what voice they silenced to earn love that should have been unconditional. This process isn't comfortable. Jung called it a sacred dismemberment, the breaking apart of false identity to reveal authentic self. You might feel lost, empty, confused. You might grieve for the relationship with your mother that never was and never can be. This grief is holy. It's the price of freedom. But beyond the breakdown comes breakthrough. As you reclaim the parts of yourself you exiled to survive childhood, something magnificent begins to emerge. Not the obedient child, not the perfect daughter, not the endless giver, but you. The real you. The one who was always there, waiting beneath the layers of conditioning and compromise. Jung wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But you cannot become who you truly are while you're still trying to be who your mother needed you to be." What happens when you finally break free from the mother complex isn't just healing, it's rebirth. Jung understood that this process creates a new kind of human being, one who is no longer driven by unconscious patterns, but guided by conscious choice. The transformation begins in your relationships. You stop attracting partners who recreate your childhood wounds. You stop needing others to complete you or save you. Instead, you begin to attract people who meet you as an equal, who celebrate your growth rather than fear it. Love becomes a choice rather than a compulsion. Your creativity explodes. The parts of yourself you suppress to keep peace in the family. Your voice, your vision, your unique way of seeing the world finally have permission to emerge. Jung observed that many of his patients experienced artistic breakthroughs after integrating their mother complexes. The energy once used to maintain false identity gets redirected toward authentic expression. Your relationship with your body changes. The shame, the criticism, the constant monitoring, these begin to dissolve. You start treating yourself with the kindness you always deserved. You set boundaries without guilt. You rest without earning it. You take up space without apologizing. But perhaps most profoundly, your relationship with other women transforms. The competition, the judgment, the unconscious betrayal. These patterns lose their grip. You begin to see other women clearly, not through the lens of your mother wound. You become capable of genuine sisterhood, of supporting other women's success without feeling diminished. Jung called this breaking the generational curse. When you heal your mother complex, you don't just free yourself. You free your children, your children's children, and all the lives you touch. You become what Jung called a conscious ancestor, someone who interrupts the unconscious transmission of pain and begins a new legacy of wholeness. This doesn't mean your relationship with your actual mother automatically heals. Sometimes it does. Sometimes understanding leads to deeper connection, but sometimes consciousness reveals that the relationship was never healthy and never can be. Either outcome is acceptable. The goal isn't reconciliation. The goal is freedom. You might find yourself setting boundaries your family doesn't understand. You might stop participating in familiar dramas. You might disappoint people who preferred you small and manageable. This is the price of individuation, and it's worth every difficult conversation, every lost relationship, every moment of standing alone. Because on the other side of this sacred confrontation lies something precious beyond measure, your authentic self. Not the self shaped by survival strategies, not the self molded by someone else's needs, but the self that existed before the wounding began. Jung called this the true personality, the unique expression of life force that you came here to embody. This self doesn't seek permission to exist. It doesn't apologize for its gifts. It doesn't dim its light to make others comfortable. It simply is, in all its flawed, beautiful, unrepeatable magnificence. Jung spent his life studying the architecture of the human soul, and he discovered something that both terrified and liberated him. We are not victims of our past. We are prisoners of our unconsciousness. The moment we make the unconscious conscious, the prison doors swing open. Your mother complex has been your invisible master for long enough. The voice that tells you you're not enough, the fear that keeps you small, the guilt that stops you from choosing yourself. These are not your truth. They are inherited programs running in your unconscious mind. Today, you have a choice. You can continue living as an echo of someone else's unhealed pain, or you can begin the sacred work of becoming yourself. Jung promised that this path leads not to perfection, but to wholeness. Not to the absence of struggle, but to the presence of authentic power. The work begins now, not when you feel ready, not when it's convenient, not when others approve. Now, because your soul has been waiting long enough and your authentic self has been patient long enough, if you found value in what we've explored today, I invite you to subscribe to the channel. We dive deep into the hidden psychology that shapes our lives, and your presence here helps this work reach others who need to hear it. In the comments below, share what resonated most deeply with you. Have you recognized your mother complex? Are you ready to begin this confrontation? Your voice matters here, and your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear to begin their own journey toward freedom. Remember this truth Jung left us. You are not born to be small. You are not born to apologize for existing. You are not born to carry someone else's pain. You were born to be magnificently, unapologetically yourself.